Hello and welcome to Voice of the Fat Mantis. You're watching my moratorium on American Horror Story double feature. We're going to be discussing this whole season. But before we do that, I would love it if you guys would like, share, and subscribe to Voice of the Fat Mantis. Of course, it is your support that makes more of these videos possible. I'm going to be doing more videos, more shenanigans, and more nerdcore information that you are dying to hear from. So please check me out, yo. Tell friends. Getting into it, first I want to discuss why I haven't been doing American Horror Story videos. Now, the Fat Mantis is notorious for doing American Horror Story videos. It's the thing that actually gave me semi-success on YouTube. I would never miss an episode, and I would share it in, communities and clubs about American Horror Story, and people were just accepting. American Horror Story fans are the greatest fans in all the world. And I had to stop doing videos this season around episode 6. Episode 5 video dropped. Then I saw episode 6. That was the finale of Red Tide. And then every episode after that was Death Valley. And I haven't done any episodes. So the reason for that is that I don't like taking a big old shit on things on the internet. I know there's a place for that. People are into that. People love watching somebody shit on something. I, however, do not find it fun. I love talking about something that I'm giving at least the benefit of the doubt of. If I despise something, it's really hard to get through a review. I don't have any fun doing that. I like being excited. I like talking about things that I like. Go figure. If I find it, you guys don't even need that negativity on the internet, so I'm trying to back off from that. However, here we are. So I've got to talk about the episode because I started reviewing every episode. So we're going to get into it. The first thing I got to say is Red Tide's finale was... However, we're going to talk about Death Valley because I'm going to save my Red Tide analysis for how it should have ended video down the line. So the final episode of Death Valley was called The Future Perfect. And that is, of course, referring to the new species that was generated at the end of the episode, produced by Kaya Gerber. I believe she's the daughter of Cindy Crawford and was only cast for that reason because she is one of the worst actresses I have ever had the displeasure of seeing. So, here's the whole thing. The narrative in this one switches to Mamie Eisenhower. And it made me realize that perhaps this entire season, I'm not talking about Red Tide, but I'm just talking about Death Valley, should have had Mamie be the main character. And the fact that they didn't have characters, like they have President Eisenhower, main character of the past story, and they have Kaya Gerber's character, Kendall, I believe it was, the main character of the second one, and really they're all brought together by Mamie, and it seems to be really dropping the ball by not making it all about Mamie. Mamie is actually the only character who actually had drama. After all, story needs twists and turns, and she ends up having an affair with Valiant Thor. Now, we can't have the main perspective be Valiant Thor because he is a conspirator, a stranger to us. He's one of the aliens. We're not supposed to know what he's up to, and therefore it shouldn't be from his perspective. But Mamie's would have been an interesting one. And so this episode, I felt like it really brought it together, but then it made me realize all the missed opportunities. I feel like all of the scenes having to do with the past, the black and white stuff, was all just info dump after info dump. They didn't actually put drama in it. It wasn't actually a story. You're just watching scenes to tell you things, to tell you information, and it just went on and on, a half an hour every episode. And then the Kendall and her friends ones was, or could have been, maybe if more focus or character development was provided, could have been a narrative. It could have been something. However, they just decided to never go there. And so I don't know why that was the choice. I don't fully understand it, but there you go. They also introduced an interesting concept known as the reptilians in this episode. I love reptilian lore. I don't believe it in real life. I'm into UFOs. Don't believe in the reptilians. However, it is fun antagonist. They're also supposed to be shapeshifters. There's a whole crazy mythos on them, and I feel like that if Death Valley was its entire full season, if it had full 10 episodes, that would have been a really good antagonist to introduce way earlier into the story. As we know, it's going through the generations. About halfway through the story, or maybe even like after 1/3, they hit the 60s, right? And that would be a great time to introduce, as Nixon was the one to introduce this idea that there are reptilian aliens running around as well. I feel like they were name dropped and then they just forgot about them. They're like, you're done. It's whatever. It didn't really do much for the story. It only brought up one interesting thing, and the fact that the Greys are willing to share the planet with them because they are they're scumbags, but they have technology. Okay, understood. Reptilians, so much fun to do, and once again, more wasted opportunities. I'm going to be honest, I don't even think the narrative of the Kendall storyline should have even been really explored. They could have been side characters, but really, Area 57, how Area 57 works, her friendship with Calico, all should have been told through the perspective of Mamie. It's just, I can't believe that was not even thought of. To be honest, I'm going to be real. If these scripts were in film school and you brought them to a teacher, a professor would grade them poorly. He would say there's no main character, there are no stories. Stories have twists and turns, they have drama, they have the hands of power exchange back and forth. None of that happened in Death Valley at all. At least Red Tide gave us twists and turns and what's going to happen next. There was no feeling of that at all in Death Valley. Ultimately, I have to give it a failing mark. Once again, I don't like publicly shitting on things, so I'm not going to tell you how low a score I would have given it. But almost none of these episodes are passable. I do really wish that they gave us full episodes of the black and white, because it was certainly the better parts of this story. Finally, they give us a dark ending. However, we were doomed from the beginning. However, and at no point did the power exchange in any point. So I just don't. It was just there, and unfortunately, we are going to have to get into another part where we're going to be ranking the American Horror Story seasons. Starting at number 10, as in the worst one I've ever experienced, I'm going to go with Roanoke. I thought it was gore porn. It actually started with one of the greatest episodes I've ever seen in my life. That was a great reenactment of how those haunting shows go. However, after that, there wasn't much substance, and they would bring in characters just to have them butchered in the most brutal ways on that show. I think they forgot to have the drama or the actual story in the American horror part of the title, which is why I rank it the least. Next is number 9, double feature. Yeah, unfortunately, double feature. It's crazy that this season started out so strong. There was a point there, I would say, around episode 4 or 5, I said this could be one of the greatest seasons of American Horror Story. I think we were all also hoping that Death Valley would have some sort of secret connection at the final episode to Red Tide, and that would actually bring it all together. And they didn't even attempt it. It wasn't probably not even brought up in the writers' room. I think they may have hired scabs or something, or local hobos, just to babble and drop a deuce on a piece of paper and call that a script. So ultimately, I'm going to have to give that a pretty bad failing mark, and those two are in great dishonor. The rest of these, like I said, I'm an American Horror Story junkie. I love this show. So the rest of them are scored way better than these last two. Number 7, we've got Cult. I wish there was more supernatural. I wish there was more horror. And to be honest, I wish the Cult had been religious and not political. I know he was trying to make a statement about politics at the time, but it didn't hit as hard. The thing that saved it is they had some very interesting characters, including Kai Anderson, beautifully played by Evan Peters. Next, we have Freak Show. Freak Show has some great one-off episodes, particularly the one where Neil Patrick Harris, I think that's a two-parter, joins in. There's a lot of cool stuff going on, or the origin of Pepper. Great stuff going on. Just ultimately not the funnest of seasons. Next, we have Coven. Now, Coven is great in so many ways. From script to acting, it is just a marvel. Unfortunately, Coven does suffer from the fact that at a certain point, once the characters have escaped death, they all can, multiple characters have the ability to resurrect people, or literally defy death themselves. It's not a horror story anymore. There's no stakes at it. They really should have kept Violet's character the only one who can resurrect, but it is what it was. Although it is a fun journey, I definitely recommend that season. Next is Apocalypse, which I thought was just a beautifully crafted season. Blending of both Murder House and Coven. We got a return to Murder House, which was a great episode. Absolutely, they didn't stick the landing, but it's still a great ride. Next, number 4, 1984. I love it. I love cheesy 80s camp. I love the shenanigans going on there. They really played it up good. I've seen a lot of these, like, these wannabe 1984, like, basically, wannabe American Horror Story shows are popping up everywhere. And there's particularly, they started trying to mimic the 1984 things. There's actually a bunch of horror material out there that actually is putting dates in their titles in an attempt to play off that. None of them come close to 1984's work. It's surprisingly considered that this was script was originally meant to be Scream Queens Season 2, when they wanted to make that an anthology. And however, they thought it was good enough that they thought that they should save it for FX, where they have a bigger budget, and American Horror Story has a bigger budget and can do more things, and I'm glad they did. Number 3 is Murder House, the one that started off Season 1. Murder House, it's just a great horror story. The stories were less wild back in those days. It was more focused on what it had to be. The story of these ghosts in this house, the story is really tight. It's well done. Now, number 2 is Season 2, which is where it got a little crazy, and that is, of course, Asylum, and that is my second favorite American Horror Story. It is amazing. I feel like the story of Bloody Face is just classic forever. They have a devil possession and all sorts of fun things, and brutally evil nuns. Amazing. Finally, we've got American Horror Story Hotel in number 1. I love Hotel, man. Gave me the creeps through and through. Thought it was an interesting take on vampires. For a little there, I actually thought that Red Tide's take on vampires was even more interesting. It was like a more interesting thing, but they ended up doing nothing with it. So there you have it. There's my list of American Horror Story seasons, and there's my little review on the final episode of American Horror Story Double Feature. The book is now closed on this one. Hopefully, we can forget about it. What do you guys think? Am I wrong? Is this really the greatest season ever, or am I just too hard on it? Please let me know what you thought down in the comments. Oh, and real quick before you go, if you want to actually interact with me, the best way to do that is on Spoon. That's right, it's a audio streaming app, and I do an interactive radio podcast every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Spoon. It's called Rogue Planet, and I do interviews with insiders and people inside the industry. So please, I would love it if you came visit me, check me out. You can talk to me in the chat, and we can actually, I can answer your questions in real time. It's a great time. Please download Spoon today. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and remember to keep tuning in to Voice of the Fat Mantis, because I'm going to keep giving you what you need. Until next time, ciao for now.